Hey everybody, and welcome to my How I Draw Harley Quinn video. First thing I'm doing here is I'm laying down some basic shapes, just as a foundation for the drawing. I'm using a STAEDTLER 3H pencil, because the pencil lead here is a little light, and it allows me to make little mistakes here and there without really ruining my whole picture. At this stage, you really don't expect your drawing to look exactly like the character. We're basically rendering, so we're trying to figure out where all the shapes, the nose and the mouth, and how it all works with the overall picture. Once we go into the darker lead pencil, that's when we'll start to see the drawing really come together and really look like the character that we're drawing. Now the next step is to darken the initial pencil work. I'm using a mechanical pencil with a 0.5 HB lead. I like the HB lead simply because it's dark enough and the lead is hard enough so that I can get the nice details that you really can't get from the 3H lead. At the same time, it's not really dark to a point where if I make any mistakes and I have to erase anything, that those mistakes will still show in the final drawing. At this stage, don't hesitate to experiment. Right now I'm playing around to see what works, what doesn't work in terms of the details that I'm putting down with the pencil. The nice thing about pencil is that you can still erase it, and if you feel that there's something that doesn't look quite right, just go back with your eraser and take it off and then start all over again. This is very important simply because once we go into ink, obviously there's no turning back at that point, and mistakes are going to be much harder to correct. Now you kind of notice that I'm all over the place when I draw. I go from the head down to the body to the hands, back to the head. That's just my preference, really. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. What this does for me is it helps me see the entire picture and see what adjustments I need to make here and there to the overall drawing. Now once I'm happy with the overall look of the drawing, it's time to lay down some ink. I start off with a fine tip. Here I'm using a STAEDTLER Artist Pen with a 0.3 tip. The fine tip allows me to draw in the details before I go into a much broader tip, which will help fill in some of the larger spaces with black ink. Now when it comes to inking, you obviously have to be very careful not to make mistakes because, well, there's really no erasing it. But with a fine tip marker, you're still able to correct some of those mistakes if it ever does happen, especially if you can just darken a particular spot here and there. And once I'm done with all the inking with the fine tip pen, I'll use a thicker marker. This one has a 0.5 tip to fill in some of the larger spaces. As you notice, I'm not coloring in the large gaps with black. That I'll use a thicker pen or a larger tip pen to do that job. Simply just, it's easier. But here again, it's just giving me the idea of where I need to fill in the spaces. The brush tip pen is very useful to fill in those large gaps simply because it has a thicker, broader tip which allows me to cover more space much easier. And once you're done, you start to erase and start laying down some colors. Here I'm using a combination of COPIC and LETRASET markers. I like the COPIC because it has a brush type quality. LETRASET has the detailed tips that I like so that I can stay within the lines. Now I'm using a bunch of different colors here. I find that gray is a neat little color to use, especially when you're working on shadows. Now don't be afraid to really experiment, but at the same time be careful when you use your marker, simply because it's well, it's just as permanent as laying down the ink. So once you really put down a color, there's really no turning back. So what I like to do is I have a sheet of paper on my side that if I'm not quite sure how a color would look like when I put it down on the drawing, I'll do a practice color first before really committing to putting down that particular color on the drawing. For her hair, this was a fun little thing to do because I used 3 different shades of the same color to give it that look where it fades in and out from her blonde hair down to, you know, the most prominent color of red. And the same thing with the blue side. And that's pretty much it. Had a lot of fun with this project. This was my first time using markers on a realistic subject, and I think it turned out okay. I hope you guys liked the video, and if you did, please hit that like icon there. And if you haven't done so, please subscribe to my channel. I try to release videos at least once or twice a week. Again, really appreciate the support, and I'll see you guys later.
You don't own me. I'm not just one of yours.